Okay, I'm finally making the video that so many of my followers have asked me to make, and that is explaining the details about my needle type vacuum packer and how to go about making it. And it's really quite simple. It doesn't take a lot of parts. I've made a lot of improvements on this needle vacuum packer that were not on my previous one. You don't see all the elbows and all the compression fittings. We've only used one compression fitting, and that's the one that actually goes on the pump. I've improved the particulate trap so that it's more efficient, and this line here and how I hook it into the needle and everything else. And we've already tried it, and you'll see me try it. You'll see it on its Maiden Voyage. The first bag that it does, it actually packs a bag nearly as tight as my freeze dryer will. Not quite. My freeze dryer will still crush a can, and I don't think this will. But this works so very well. And so if you've been wanting to build one of these, I noticed that I have built a caddy for it. It's all in one unit. I can pick this thing up. I can carry it where I want to go. And it's real convenient, and it's a lot simpler, and I'm quite sure that just about anybody with any tinkering skills at all can build this. Okay, so with that, I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking about my needle vacuum packer. Okay, let's get started. Now, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil, unless you've got a really good memory, because I'm going to go through this and give you a parts list. And so go ahead and pause it here and get something to write with, and then come on back and we'll get started. Now, the first thing you're going to need, of course, is the vacuum pump itself. Now, I've had this vacuum pump for about 10 years, and I got it at Harbor Freight. It cost me $100 back then, so it undoubtedly will cost more now. But these pumps are advertised for the HVAC industry. An HVAC tech will use one with an air conditioning unit. It'll come with a particular attachment to it. I took it off because that attachment or that valve assembly was specifically designed for HVAC. I converted it into a 1/4 inch compression fitting, and I was lucky that fortunate that I was able to find the reducer that would go from the threads on the vacuum port down to a 1/4 inch compression fitting. I don't know if yours will or not. I don't know what kind of a vacuum pump that you're going to get, so you're going to have to figure that out yourself. How to convert or be able to hook a 1/4 inch line up to the vacuum pump. Okay. Now you'll notice here I have all this on a caddy. I built this out of just some scrap wood that was in my garage, and I did that specifically for this right here. This is a particulate trap. The one that I had before, this was just kind of flopping around loose, and it was a pain in the rear, quite frankly. So I built this caddy so that I could keep that particular trap in close proximity to the vacuum pump without it flopping all over the place. It's just a whole lot more efficient. Now, what you're going to need also is a Kerr jar for particulate trap. It's going to have to be a wide mouth. Don't get the narrow mouth jar. Get a wide mouth. The size here, I think this one is a 2-pint size, but I built this so this sits right down inside of there. Now, the second thing you're going to need also is a piece of wood. Now, this is a piece of oak that was in my garage. I used oak because I just happened to have it. I found this and I thought, wow, that's already finished. It's a 1/2 inch thick is what you want. You can go with 3/8. But I wouldn't go any thinner than that, and I wouldn't go any thicker either because it's unnecessary. But you're going to want a slab of wood. Now, it didn't have to be very big, just big enough to cut 2 wheels out of it, like this, okay, about this size. If I was to go and buy this again without having it in my garage, I wouldn't have bought oak. I would have bought alder if I was at Home Depot. But I also found down at Joann's in craft store that they have basswood. And that is the one, all things being the same, that is the one I would have bought because it's a semi-hard wood. Now notice I didn't say balsa wood. Okay, there's a big difference. Don't use balsa wood. It will fail. You want to use basswood, B-A-S-S wood, 1/2 inch thick, smooth on both sides. And that basswood will work very, very well. Okay, you're going to want to buy or acquire this line right here. Now here is a screenshot of the tag that came on this line. This is actually a fuel line. It's orange. It's very thick-walled. Okay, I have used, I tried to use a different line before, a nylon, a thin wall nylon line, and when I put vacuum on it, it didn't take very long before the vacuum crushed the line. So you're going to want to use this. Now, let me see if I've got it here. This right here. A lot of the 1/4-inch fittings will have this little doohickey right here that will be fit inside this line like so. I don't know if you can see that, but you want to get rid of it. Okay, this will not work with this line. This tubing here is so thick walled, this won't fit in there. And if you force it to fit in there, if you heat it up and expand it or something, then it won't fit in here. So if your fitting has one of these in it, get rid of it. You're not going to use it. And then you'll notice that this has a permanent compression fitting inside of it, but if you don't, it doesn't have to be permanent compression fitting. You can put the nut on and you can put a compression sleeve on it and it'll work just fine. So anyhow, that's what's going to happen there. It's going to go back on there and get this line. This comes in a 10-foot length. Don't get any shorter than 10-foot length because you're going to have to cut about 1.5 feet of it off to go from here to here. And then you want the rest of it so that it's easy to use. Okay. Now, here's the injector. There are several brands of this injector. This is called an Asvero. I don't even know how to pronounce that. But the one that I had before was called Demeshi. The only thing that you have to be concerned with is to make sure that it is an all stainless steel body. You don't want a plastic one. And also don't get the one that has the sight window in it so you can see the plunger inside and you can see what you're pulling into it. It has to be solid all the way around. Okay, I got this one on Amazon. There are, like I say, 17 or 18 different ones that you can get, and this one came with that needle. That's the one that you're going to use primarily to vacuum pack your bags. And then it also comes with this small one, and this one you put a 45-degree bend in it right at the base without kinking it. It has to be a soft bend, so that I use this one to vacuum pack really small bags if I'm doing herbs and spices and stuff like that, and I have a really small bag. I'll explain that in another video how that works. Okay, so you have to get that, you have to order it, and then you're going to need some clear weld. I use this one here. Now this is the one that we're going to use to glue this thing up on top of here, so that you can put your hoses in there and your pipes in there and it'll work. This has a one-time use pre-mixed tube in it, so that you hook this up to there, and as you squeeze it through, it mixes them together and it comes out. You don't have to sit there and stir it up and try to slop it around. It's only one-time use, and this sets up really quick. I've got a compass here so that I can draw my circles on the wood. You want to draw these circles at 2 1/8 to 2 1/4, but no bigger than 2 1/4 inch in diameter. And let's see, you got the 2 wrenches for tightening down this 1/4-20 bolt. You're going to want 1 1/4-20 bolt, 2 washers, and a lock washer and a nut. Okay, and that 1/4-20 bolt is what's going to go in the middle of here and going to clamp everything down. We'll do that when I'm finished here. Okay, you're going to want to drill with a 1/4 inch bit on it. All right, and other than that, that's about it. That's about all you're going to need. This isn't a difficult project, but go ahead and gather all those things together and then come on back and we'll get started. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work with a particulate trap. As I mentioned before, don't skip this process. Don't try to use this vacuum pump without doing a particulate trap, because you got to remember that needle is going inside of bags that has absolutely dry food in it. And if you are going to suck up dust and particulate, and now the barrel of the needle itself is going to act as a first line of defense because you're going to collect particulate inside of there, but some of that dust is going to make it through this tube and is going to make it into here. And if this isn't here to catch it, it's going to end up in here, and very quickly you'll damage your machine by running sludge and particulate and all kinds of crap through there, and you don't want to do that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the wood and set this to just a hair, maybe an inch and a 1/16 between the point and the pencil lead, so that you can draw a circle that is 2 1/8, maybe 2 1/4 inches in diameter, but no bigger. Now, so what you'll do is, I've already done this, is you'll set that on there and you'll draw 2 circles. And I don't know if you can see them here or not, but you'll notice I have marked in the middle exactly where the middle of this is, because you're going to want to drill that hole. All right, and so we're going to go ahead and do that. And incidentally, drill the holes in here before you cut it out, because this will give you something to hold on to. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put that drill bit right in the center there, and I'm going to drill. There. I'm not going to bother drilling the other one because I've already done it. But once you have that hole drilled in both of these, then you go ahead and cut it out. Let's see, get some of this dust off me. You can go ahead and cut these out. And then, however, you can use a jigsaw, you can use a bandsaw, you can even use a disc sander, because there's not going to be much wood here to remove. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get it to look like this. Now, they don't have to be perfectly round, but you do have to have those holes so that they will line up just like this, okay? And that 1/4 inch bolt will go through and clamp them both together. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start by using this epoxy with the premix hole on it, or the premix tube. And see, how does that come off of there? Well, that's a pain in the rear to get off of there. But after you got it off, you twist the mixer onto it. Boy, and they are not going to make this easy. You've got to twist that on so it doesn't come off. Okay. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to take this lid, and you notice I have a hole in it. Okay, and how I do that is you're going to want to pre-drill that hole. Is I'll take that piece of wood and I'll center it right exactly on there, and then I'll use that as a guide. I'll take my drill and I'll put it in there, and I'll drill all the way through that hole, and that will all the way through that lid, and that will put a hole exactly where I need it to be. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the nut and I'm going to put a washer on it, and I'm going to stick it inside of here, just like that. Now, this is important. I'm going to back it off about a ½ inch, because I'm going to want to put some of this adhesive or this epoxy around, you got to take this off, around the base of this screw, because what you want to do is you want to get some of this epoxy down inside the wood, between the screw and the wood. So, and well, that's working really well, but that's mixing it right up. And okay, there it is. Don't put very much. You don't have to put a whole lot on there. But you can see now I've got some epoxy on there, and when I bring it down in, it's going to bring some of that epoxy down around the 1/4 bolt inside the wood and help with the seal. So on the other side, now you're going to want to do the same. All around the edge to make a good seal. See that? Right around that edge there. And then you're going to want to put a bead of it all the way around in here. Don't leave any air gaps. Don't come right to the edge, because you're going to get some squeeze out, okay? So with that, now you're going to want to take, and you want to put this with the top down. Okay, this is actually the top. You take this and put this with the top down, move it around a little bit, and you're going to notice you're going to get a little bit of squeeze out right here. That's exactly what you want. Now, a little bit more right here, not much. Okay, now this is important. Don't get any glue. Don't mess with this rubber seal around the edge. Even if you get a little bit of glue on there and you try to wipe it off, you're going to leave enough behind it's going to harden that rubber, and it might fail. So I don't put any more of this adhesive on here. I'll put it on here, and I won't come all the way to the edge. Right here, you see me do this, and I'll put a little bit in the middle. But again, don't come all the way to the edge. Take that, put it on there, and you're good. Now again, you want to take a little bit of that adhesive and you want to come around the base of the bolt. And all of this is to prevent any leaks, okay? Then you put washer, put the lock washer on it, then you put the nut on it, and get that nut all the way down, and then tighten it down. Tighten the whole show. Get it good and tight, but not so tight that you squeeze out all of there. Being careful again not to let any of that adhesive or that glue settle down around that rubber, and that's all you have to do with that for right now. Okay, so with that, we'll set that aside, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the Marinade Injector. Okay, take this out here. Set this over here, and we're going to take this off and take the plunger out of it. Okay, now this plunger, there's no way to take it out. It's permanently done, so you're going to have to cut this off. So I'm going to go out into my garage and I'm going to get a hacksaw and I'm going to cut this off just like that. Okay, so now that you've got that cut off, you take the plunger out of there and you discard this. This is absolutely useless, and so just throw it away. Now you're going to notice that this hole in here is too small, or it may be too small for this line here, so you're going to have to drill it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it on top of this piece of wood here, and I'm going to, okay, drill that hole out so that my vacuum line will fit inside of it, and it does very well. Now you want to put that in there and pull it through about that far, and I'll show you why. So you take your weld, this water weld here, and again I changed from using that 2-part resin to this water weld because number one, the 2-part resin was too old. Okay, it wasn't mixing right. I didn't want to trust it. But and then I remembered that the last one I made, and it worked really well, I actually used this water weld compound here, and so that's what I'm going to use again. And I'm going to cut off about maybe 3/4 of an inch of that, and this is what we're going to use. Okay, take that plastic off of there. And then I'm going to knead this around in my hands for, I don't know, about 3 or 4 minutes. So I'll be right back. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes. This is easier to work with than that putty or that two-part resin was, because this will hold its shape, and we're going to find that that is going to be a real advantage to what we want to do. Now I'm going to take out part of it, not all of it, and you just wrap that around that tube. Okay? And this is going to help you keep this putty off of those threads in there, so that when you push this down in there, oh, let's see, I'm going to take something here. As a matter of fact, I'll cut a little piece of this off and start pushing it down into the base of this cat, or this top of this tube. And you're going to want to bring it all the way to the edge, all the way to this outside edge, because you're going to screw that barrel into this while it is still. Take a little bit more. You're not going to need all of it. And I'm going to wrap it around this tubing again. See, just in a little bunch right around that tubing. It can get a little bit messy, but it should be okay. Pull the tube through again. There. That looks exactly as it should look. The epoxy, or that liquid weld, or that water weld, is all the way down inside of there, and it's all the way to the edge. Now, here's what's important. You take this cooking spray and you spray those threads on there and the very end of this thing. Okay? And the reason you do that is to prevent this water weld from sticking to this thing. And you put this in there and you thread it down back and forth. You thread it all the way down, and then just to check, I bring it back out. Okay, it needs to be, I need to push more up against the edge, because the idea is to get this edge right here to make its own seat. You put this down in there again. Screw it all the way down. And let it sit. Now, the fact of the matter is that that liquid steel or water weld is not going to stick to this pipe, okay, this barrel, because it has that cooking spray on it. Now, this says it sets up in about an hour, so we're going to come back in an hour and we're going to see how that looks, okay? Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and judging from what this leftover little ball is here, it's starting to get hard, okay? It's still pliable, but that's exactly what we want. So now, as you'll notice, this barrel will come off there very, very easy. And what I'm doing is, here's a picture of it, but I'm looking around this edge, okay? Because I want to see a flat surface there that was formed by this surface right here. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a chopstick here. I'm going to start pushing the liquids, or the water weld, into up against that outside edge, because I'm going to want this to press up against it and then actually form a seal. Make sure that that water weld is well placed against the pipe coming through. You don't want any gaps in there, so don't play around with it. Don't try to straighten it out or anything else like that. Just let it harden in the way that it is. Now I've got that. Okay, now here's a picture of it. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. It still has that residue on it, and I'm going to screw that on until I can feel it come in contact with that putty. And then I'm going to continue to turn it very slowly until I get some fairly good resistance. And then back and forth, it kind of tamps it down in there. And then when I take this off, perfect. So now that you've inspected this thing and you've seen that you have a complete impression of this outside edge against that, you can screw this thing back in. Tighten it down a little bit, not too tight, because you don't want to smash all that putty out from underneath it, but then you can leave it. Okay, now that'll set up in about an hour. And then what I'll do is I'll be able to tell how well it's set up by watching this. And you see that thing is already starting to get really, really hard. So with that, we will turn our attention back to this. And right now, that resin it's still just a little bit, pliable. But we can work with it. So we'll go ahead, and I've inspected this edge here. There's no glue on it. It's still a good clean edge. This will sit on there just fine, and so we're going to go with that. Okay, it's been about an hour, maybe an hour and a half since I completed this project. That epoxy, this stuff right here, worked very, very well. Now we're going to use this. I've still got about half of this, and so we're going to use this. Won't be able to use this pre-mixer though, because it's sealed. What it was pre-mixing in there has completely destroyed it, but we'll take that off and we will hand mix everything else that's on there. Now the first thing you want to do with this is we're going to put it on there, and we're going to tighten it down a little bit with the band. The reason we want to do that is so that it will be easy to work with. We need to drill 2 holes opposite each other in this lid. Now normally I'd use a drill press, but for this I'm going to go ahead and use this drill with a 1/4 inch bit. Now you're going to need to tighten this down a little bit so that the drill bit doesn't grab, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut and drill 2 holes in this thing, okay? First one in one side. Good, all the way through, and then down in the other side also. Good. So now we have 2 holes in there. Those are the 2 holes. Go ahead and loosen this up. You got some in there, and this, take the back end of this, and we're going to want to shove it down in that hole all the way down, and there we go. All right, that's going to be one side. You want to bring that down all the way to the bottom, and then you want to come back about 12 inches, because this is the one that's going to hook up to here, to your pump. So we can go ahead and we can cut that off. Oh, there's the scissors right there at about like that. Okay. Then we want to go ahead and take this again, the other side. I'm actually going to find the end of it here. Come on, don't do that to me. And stick it down the other side. This should go in there fairly easy. No, not going to go in there fairly easy. So we have to not very much, because you do want it fairly tight. So we're going to put that down inside there. See if we can make it go. Boy, that puppy don't want it to work. Just set that down in there. We've got to get that. There we go. Okay. You want to push that one down in. Fairly good also. Now we want to seal this around here as best we can, and we're going to use this. We're going to put a good heavy goopy layer all around the whole thing so that it comes in contact with these two lines right here. Okay, now here's something that it might be more advantageous to do, is take a piece of tape. If I can get some of this tape off of here. And tape these two things against each other. You know, it might be a good idea, and I didn't think about it, if you put this tubing under some hot water and straighten it out and get rid of some of this curl, because this is really beginning to be a pain. Okay, that'll work. Don't have to be pretty. Let's get rid of the excess here. But that is holding those tubes straight up. And now let's go ahead and use the back side of this and my chopstick here. I'm going to have to take this off. Pop that thing off. Put a goodly amount down on there. Mix it around. And you're going to want to goop, and I'll show you what's going to happen here. This doesn't take very much mixing, but pull these out a little bit further, then just really lather some of this stuff around the base of it. Okay, there's that one. And that one. Now, once you've got this stuff completely lathered around the base of that, pull it back through a little bit. Not very much, but you're doing this in order to pull some of that adhesive back down into the hole. Okay? This is exactly what you want. Then take your jar, put it on there, and leave that alone. Now, you can take some more of this. I'm going to squeeze out a little bit more. Because you're going to want to do the same thing to this side, but we're not going to be able to pull the lines very much. We can stick them back and forth a little bit, but let's go ahead and, I mean, just really goop it on there. You're going to want a whole bunch of this stuff. around those edges. So I'm not holding back at all. Dang it, they're just getting it all over the table, and I don't want to do that. Let's see here. I have to wipe that off before it sets up. But I'm covering up the head of that bolt a little bit, but that's okay. It's way more important that you get a good heavy amount of this. And what you can do is kind of tap it. See if you can force some of that adhesive down in any gaps that might be around that. Okay, then we're going to let this sit just like that. I don't want to move anything. I don't want to move these around. I don't want to mess with it, because now that that's beginning to harden up, I don't want any gaps to get in it. It's already beginning to set up, but I'm quite certain that that's going to be a very hard and very well sealed jar. There's not going to be any vacuum leaks there. So let's give it about an hour. I'll be back and we'll put the final finishing touches on this, and then we'll test the whole thing. Okay, so about an hour. All right, it's been about 2 hours. This epoxy has set up really well. I mean, I can still put a fingernail dent in it, but other than that, it's not going anywhere. So let's put the finishing touches on it. Okay, first off, I'm going to take it out of here and inspect and make sure that I haven't got any epoxy where it's not supposed to be. Everything looks really good. I'm going to cut this tape off. Now we're going to cut one of these down really short. Okay. And the one that we want to cut really short is the one that's going to go to the vacuum pump. And I'll explain how this works here as we go. I got some epoxy on that line there. It's going to be a pain. All right. So what we want to do first is I want to find the short one. And that's this one here. And you're going to come in here and you're going to cut that one. Make sure it's the short one. You cut the long one and you're messing up. Take the short one. This is the one that's going to go in the vacuum pump, and you want to cut it down to about, oh, maybe 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. And that's all. The other one you want to leave long. And I did get some epoxy on that tape. It's no big deal, but just ugly. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, now basically that's all we need. You see you got a long one here. That one's going to go all the way to the bottom. And then that short one is going to go, it'd be the one that draws the vacuum in on the whole thing to begin with. Okay, put this on there, tighten it down pretty good, and that's what you're going to look. That's what it's going to look like. Okay, eventually this curve here, this should hang straight down. I might take it in and put it under some hot water and straighten it out artificially. But anyhow, this is good enough for demonstration purposes. The short one here, we're going to hook up to. Let me see here. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to actually hook it up now to the vacuum pump. I'm going to put this through that compression seal, put it in there, make sure it bottoms out, and then, okay, I'm going to give that a little bit more of a turn, not very much, maybe 3/4 of a turn, and that will set that compression sleeve and tighten it in real tight where that's not going to come out. Okay, so now let's get our needle here. Well, let's test it first. I'm going to take this off and take a look at that inside of there. That should be absolutely hard by now, and it is. It's rock hard. It's not going anywhere. So let's turn this thing on and see. Yeah, we're getting compression. We're getting a vacuum there. Good. Good. So it is pulling the vacuum through the particulate filter. Let's go ahead and put this on there. Now tighten it down a little bit and let's see what we got here. Yeah. That particulate trap is working very well. It's not leaking at all. So let's go ahead and put our needle on this, and it just so happens I have a bag here that needs sealing. Okay, this one I did, and I very intentionally avoided sealing it so that I could seal it here. Now again, here's a picture of what I'm doing. Cutting this right across, leaving an opening between the vacuum seal, or the vacuum heat seal, and my heat seal so that I could stick this needle into it. This is the maiden voyage of this needle. Goes all the way in. And let's see what happens here. Oh my goodness, look at that. Wow, that worked really fast. Now mind you, and when I was setting this up, I pulled this cover off and I cleaned all there was some slime and gunk inside of it. I put new oil into it and everything. But man, that happened really quick. And you know what I don't have? I don't have my impulse sealer out here to finish it up with. So I'll go ahead and do that. Yes, sir. An excellent seal. My impulse sealer is in the other room. Give me a second, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I brought my impulse sealer out here and I did seal across this this opening here. So this very well vacuum packed sweet potatoes is what I had in here. And you know, it is product like this that really tell the story about how well these work. Okay, I didn't think to put it on the video, but what I did was I added a few cotton balls to this, and while I was doing that, I had to wipe out a little bit of sweet potato dust. I mean, it was just a few grains, but I could tell by the color that the sweet potato dust from this pack had made it past this first line of defense as far as particulate traps go, and made it into here. It was just a hair, but if we didn't have that particulate trap, that little bit would have made it into the oil. And if you're going to do like I do, you know, between 4 and 8 bags every time you use one of these things, that means you can get a lot in the oil in your oil pump. And so adding these cotton balls in here is just another little way to prevent that from happening. And you don't want to put a lot of them in there. There's only 6 big cotton balls in there, because the idea isn't to filter anything. The idea is just to stand in the way of any dust that might try to make its way back up into the pump. Okay, so anyhow, I had so much fun doing that last one. We're going to do one more before we end here. And I happen to have one bag. This is blackened chicken Alfredo. cut the corner off just a hair. Press some of the air out of it so that hole will open up just a little bit. It'll make it easier to stick the needle in there. Let's go ahead and find that hole. There it is. And be careful not to stick the needle through the other side of the bag. I've been known to do that. That is a very, very sharp needle. So there, just turn it on. And oh man, that's fast. That's faster than my other needle was. I think it might have something to do with cleaning this thing out real good, which I hadn't done in a long time because I don't use it that much. But wow, that's almost as hard as the freeze dryer will do it. There's no give to that at all, so that's good enough. Pull the needle out, lay this corner across the impulse sealer, and seal it. Good seal. And there you have it. Okay? So with that, that's how to make a vacuum pump needle with a Maiden Injector, a vacuum pump, and a particulate trap. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, and you've not already subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you would, because I'm always doing something like this, something that not many others will do. As a matter of fact, I try to do things that nobody else does to help you become a better prepper by freeze drying. So like, subscribe, share, you know the routine. Also, as usual, if you haven't seen my gallery, I am a professional photographer. There's the address right there. If you would visit my gallery, browse around a little bit, take a look at my fireworks and, you know, my architecture and water drop, and there's a lot to see, and I'd really enjoy hearing from you. So with that, I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking about needle vacuum packing.